Welcome to New England Lacrosse Journal's Chasing the Goal podcast, your destination for all things lacrosse. I'm your host, Kyle Devitte. We do not have Jack Piatelli in studio. Want to thank Jack for making this podcast better, for making me better. I'm going to kind of go solo going forward. We might bring in some potential co-host auditions. One of them is on the line. If he ever wants to drive to Milton and sit in the seat, it's Dan Arestia, everybody.
That's a commute. That's a tough commute. I mean, it's a lacrosse podcast, so you know I'm in, but that's a tough commute.
It's a tough commute. It's a tough commute for me. I would love to do all of these on Zoom from the comfort of my makeshift desk in my living room. But I cannot do that. And I'm just happy to have you because not just because you write for us and all this stuff, but, you know, we have a unique past, I think, where we, you know, connected in a lot of different ways. And I think in the last couple of years, especially, I think one of the things that COVID did was it really broke down all the smaller markets of everything. And lacrosse is one of those markets, in case you were wondering. And it kind of made all of us go, we like need each other. This is dumb. Like any sort of rivalry that was out or people that we didn't like, or this person said this on Twitter and blah, blah. We're kind of forced to let go of that. Cause if you held on to it, little tip, if you did hold on to it, you're not in the industry anymore. You are out. And you know, that was one of the things that's kind of how you and I got more connected. We knew each other from doing stuff. I mean, you've been the Connecticut guy forever. It seems forever. It's probably not forever.
I don't think it's forever. But
when did you start though? When did you really get into doing lacrosse writing, I guess is the best way to put it?
I guess from a writing and a coverage point of view, it's probably in like 2014, 2015, around that time. And I had done little like player features about a recruit here or there, kind of stuff like ad hoc for people as they wanted it. But 2014, 2015 was when I was getting out of coaching because I was getting ready to go get married and start doing all that stuff. And Kyle, you coach, you know, you don't do that for the money. Cannot get it's tough. It's tough.
Not even in Connecticut, really?
Not even in Connecticut. Even with the clubs and all that stuff, I was doing all that stuff, but I needed to kind of get a 9 to 5. So I went and did what everybody who's not very smart would do, and I got into community journalism, and I started writing for like the Darien newspaper, the Darien Times. And my beat there was actually everything except sports, really. They had a whole separate crew just for sports stuff, but they knew that I was coming from this lacrosse background, and they knew that lacrosse in Darien was huge. So basically, whenever something was coming up, I would go to my editor, who was awesome, the great Susan Schultz, and be like, Susan, can I go cover this? Can I do a gamer? Can I do this kind of stuff for you? And she would always say yes. So around that time, I really started ramping up lacrosse writing, and I loved doing it. So out of the they definitely didn't ask for this, but out of nowhere, I just emailed Terry and Matt at IL, and I emailed Chris and Safe at College Cross at the time, and I said, I've been around lacrosse a long time, coached a long time, I write about it some now. Do you guys need somebody to write about lacrosse for you for anything? And Chris and Safe were just like, sure, you can do a weekly thing for us if you want to on the college games, kind of once a week, whatever you feel like talking about. And that was great. And then Terry and Matt said, you live near Yale, you live pretty close to Army. If you want to do game stories for us once in a while, you can do it. And I said, sure. And I did it. And that kind of just pushed the snowball down the hill. It's all kind of spun away from there.
It's interesting. I thought, for some reason, I thought you were around a little longer than that, but that timeline lines up because that's kind of when I was at IL. And they would always try to get me to go to games like that. And I'm like, I am not going to Connecticut, guys. It's too far. The transition to Massachusetts to Connecticut alone because of the roads is bad enough for me not to do it.
Yeah, it's horrible. I mean, I'd been around, again, I started coaching lacrosse, or I started getting into coaching lacrosse in like the early 2000s. So like I've been around it from a coaching point of view for a very long time. And obviously I played growing up and everything, but in terms of like the media portion of it, it's scary to think it because like 2014 and 2015 doesn't seem that long ago, but that's 10 years ago.
Yeah. It's pretty wild how fast everything goes. If I want to say like fast when you're having fun, but
Yeah.
it's not
It
always
happens all
fun.
at once. All at
Yeah,
once.
it really does. And I think one of the things that you did a really good job of to carve out this, we'll get to what you're kind of doing now and the kind of area that you're excelling in. But one of the things you did well is like you incorporated your personality into stuff online. And, at the time, it sounds dumb, but there weren't a ton of people doing that in the space. And if they were doing that, that's all they were doing. Right. And you still have now that's kind of become the thing everyone does. And it's not as valuable or, the thing about the thing about being inside lacrosse, sorry for the pun. The thing about being inside of it is that there's so many in jokes that we can all make to each other that like maybe don't make sense to everyone else. But those are the things that kind of keep us in it. And, I think that's kind of where I first connected with you. I think we probably met at a Yale game in like 2016, 2017.
We did. I told you were sitting in my seat.
Yes, yes. And then I remember afterwards that I was talking to Matt and Terry about it. And they're like, oh, how's Arestia? I was like, he's fine. And they were like, yeah, well, he remembers you. And then I talked to you about it. I was like, what'd you say? You're like, yeah, you're a maniac when you watch a game. And I'm like, yes, I am. I forget that I think I've tempered it a lot more as I've gotten older. But like, if I'm watching something and I see something really egregious, either really egregiously awesome or terrible, it's the first thing I'm like blowing up over. I'm just gonna like. I think a lot of people assume and I've said this, the person is not the persona online or anything like that, right? And that's true to a point, but like if I have a very severe reaction on Twitter, I'm having it in person. Like that's actually happening. And I like that that's kind of like where you and I connected because you were just like, dude, what's up? I was like, "No, I just love the game, man. I can't stand that they do this." Like, I think it was actually a really bad ride, if I remember correctly, where I was just like, what are you doing? Not even giving pressure. What are you doing? Easy goal, like 2-pass goal. What are you thinking? And you're just like, yeah, but like they were subbing. I was like, I don't care. That's the attackman's fault. Like I like having those strong opinions. And I think like, one of the things that you and I have talked about specifically is like having that kind of passion about what you're doing is going to lead to like much better things. And, for you, I feel like that's happening now. I mean, you do have a full-time job. You're working and doing lacrosse. And I remember we had this conversation and you put it in your Twitter bio, so I know it affected you, where I was just like, this isn't your job, dude. It's different when it's not your only job. Like when it's your job, it's so much more. You have the passion of someone this is their full-time job. And as your editor, I love that for you. I love that for me. Right. But I think there's a difference because like this is not a profession where we're making tons of money and
no. Yeah,
you'll
you're
get,
doing this. You're
yeah,
doing this because you love it. And yeah, I mean, I absolutely love it. I tell people, like, you put a lacrosse game anywhere near me, I'm probably going to go. I go to games by myself all the time. It could be a high school game with two teams that has, nobody's going D1, D2, D3, and maybe there's a club guy out there. But you know what? It's a game near me and it's lacrosse. So I'm going to be there. And I did for a while have like the "this isn't my job" in the Twitter bio, and I did that because for a while, and it kind of like, again, like I joked about it, but these things would happen all at once, and all at once I was kind of this guy who people were looking to what I would put on social media as like he's the guy who's going to tell me what's going on, or he's going to tell me what the story is about this or that. And if I didn't have a comment on something, or I didn't have like an answer, I didn't know, I didn't have any inside information for whatever this thing was that people wanted to know about, people be like, isn't it like it's your job to do this? Like this is all you have is for your, if this was my job, I'd work harder at it. But I
yeah,
eventually had to be like, this isn't my job.
right.
I wish it was. I tell people all the time, if I could do anything, I do that. I would do this. Like if I had all the money in the world and I could do anything, this is what lacrosse is what I would do. Um, and it's hard. Like there's a unique challenge in that for a lot of people. Some people spend their entire life not knowing like the thing that they could be doing that would make them the happiest. Like if I could do anything, I would do that. Some people just don't know what that is.
Yeah.
The hard thing for me, and I'm sure, for guys like you and a lot of guys like us, is we know what it is.
Yeah.
But you can't do it. Like you can't actually do it. Like I know the thing I would do if I could do anything, but I have a wife and 2 kids and a mortgage. Like I look, it can't just be lacrosse. That's just the nature of the beast right now. I hope it gets there soon, and I want to help get it there where I can do only this. But maybe we can't. I mean, ESPN's hiring, doing AI recaps of games, not hiring guys like us. So maybe I'm farther away than I thought.
Yeah. Technically I do this, but I also, I do that, but also what's difficult about this job that I currently have is that a lot of it is geographical, right? Where I'm kind of pulled in a lot of directions to cover a lot of levels, right? And we have people asking us to cover youth. We have people asking us to cover club and prep and public school and college and D3 and D2 and D1 and all those things and pro and indoor. And it's like, do you think one person can do all that?
Yeah.
It's not possible. Even this is my job. I do it all the time. And one of the things that I had to give up was doing what you were doing, which is being available on Twitter, answering questions, breaking news, stuff like that. Like in order to do the job that I do now as not just a writer, but an editor and someone that pushes the site forward, pushes the business forward, I can't be on Twitter and active all the time. Like I cut that out on purpose because I had to. And also, I'll be honest, at the time, things were getting a little out of hand in that platform specifically. And I feel good about it.
It's been a ride.
I miss it sometimes, but sometimes I'm just like, yo, I don't need another spam bot posting at the bottom of this to ruin my whole point. Yeah. That's not great. But it also goes into like YouTube and Instagram and things like that. And how you connect with people is actually now part of being a journalist in any field. And it's even more important in people don't understand how small this is in terms of there's only so many companies you can write for that will pay you. Like there's a lot of places that you could write for. Sure. How many of them actually pay you money for assignments is a totally different thing. And I can count them all on one hand. I'm not even going to count them and say who they are, but they all fit right here. They all fit. There's actually, oh no, sorry, it's 4. This is how many they fit into. And it's become kind of, and I don't want this whole podcast to be us like bitching about lacrosse writing, because it's given us so much. Like, I know, like, again, like I think you deserve to be a full-time dude somewhere, and hopefully with freelance and the increase in money and the increase in all of the things that we cover, that happens. But if you can at least piecemeal it for as long as you can, that's great. Like I would love that for you and for everyone else, right? Like I think everyone just kind of wants to make more money, but also we all have to do different things to stay in the space if we want to stay with lacrosse. And I can't just, this is what I told my bosses this once, where they're like, why are you coaching? And I was like, I just won a state championship and got named assistant coach of the year. And they're like, yeah, no, why are you coaching though? Like, why are you doing it? It's not for, I was like, you're right. It's not for money, but money's great. I probably wouldn't do it for free, but it's almost free. And I said to them, like, how do you expect me to be connected to the things I'm doing if I don't coach? Right? Like, how do you expect me to understand things that happen on the field or trends in the game or anything like that? Even at the level that I coach at, which is Division III in New Hampshire, it's not the highest level of lacrosse you're ever going to see, for sure. But it matters to me personally, and I stay connected to that side of the game, right? That's why I do it. I have to do that, because if I don't do that, then I have to do Twitter. You know what I mean? Like, then I have to do what Dan does, and that, I don't want to minimize what you do at all. I think it's super important. And one of the things that we're going to transition into is how you went from, covering Yale and Army into being a pro guy. And, I'm not saying I have a lot to do with it, but I have some stuff to do with it. Cause like, I left, man. Like the spot that I was occupying for a long time was being the MLL guy and part of the beginning of PLL, like being that guy that's all I cared about. That's what I wrote about. That's what I wanted. That's what I believed in. That's everything about me. And then when that changed, I was worried because I was like, Chris Rosenthal, who still writes for Inside Lacrosse, I was like,
Yeah.
see, dude, he was the first person I told, right? And I was like, dude, just like, please do this. Like, take up the mantle, like do this, like be the guy. And he has a full-time job too. So he's like, I'll try, but like, I'm doing a lot of stuff. And I was like, and he also writes about other stuff. He's not just a lacrosse guy, but it ended up being not that I don't think you took my place. I think you made your own and made it better than the stuff that I was doing. Wow. I almost swore there. The stuff that I was doing because you care about it. And that's the thing.
I think what I wanted to do was I wanted to do like my personality, my own voice, and I wanted to do the news thing, and I wanted to try and do all that in a way that people would enjoy and get the news they wanted, but also have some fun with it, and in a way that it was always very important to me to be as objective and as independent as possible. So I kind of, and I still am, I kind of park myself on this island, which can be kind of lonely, but you know what? Like sometimes to me, I make peace with it because I'm like, it's the way it kind of has to be. But I wanted to do that. And, as I looked around at people trying to do like, other lacrosse or other things, it was like everybody wanted to be like the lacrosse version of like PFT commenter from Pardon My Take, or the lacrosse version of this media personality, the lacrosse version of that person. It's like, I don't want to be the version of somebody that's already doing something. Nobody else can do that thing like they can do it. Let them do it. They're killing it. Fine. I'm going to try and do it my way. And that kind of, I think people appreciated that. I think people kind of saw that I was trying to do that I wasn't just like trying to be like a lacrosse branded knockoff of something that was already out there, but just trying to be, again, just like myself, kind of on an island a little bit, and somebody you could trust to be like, if it's good, I'm going to tell you it's good. If it's bad, I'm going to tell you I think it's bad. And, I'll try and be as reasoned and objective as I can when I do those things.
Yeah, it's being authentic. That's and what you find. Sorry if you're going to take this as shade and you're listening to this and you think I'm talking about you. I probably am. There's so many people that are faking that, and it's like we all know in the industry that you're faking it. Like we know, right? Yeah. But then there's people that are legit. Like, listen, like you, me, and Ty are like on totally different islands, but also now we share space on the islands. Now the islands are floating closer to each other.
Lacrosse is kind of moving in that direction.
Yeah. Well, it has to, because in order for us to make money and everything to go forward, we have to connect. We have to be the conduit for people. And you do that for PLL so well. And like, I think for a long time when I left, I was like, I'm so worried. I miss it so much. I want to do it again, like all this stuff. And then I just kind of was like, well, let's see what Dan's doing. And I clicked over and I was just like, this is almost exactly what I would do. Okay, we're good. I like what you and Phil, especially too, like.
I was going to say, Phil's been doing it really well for a long time.
Phil Shore also writes for New England Cross Journal. And I know you know this, coached him at Emerson. When he was in Emerson. So I always bring that up because I think he hates when I bring it up. But you have all these people that care about the pro game, care about the other parts of the game. I want to tell the story about how you and I got to work for USA Lacrosse doing D2 and D3, because that's kind of been my beat for a while, but like I kind of alternated on it, and it wasn't it always was important because that's where I coached all of my college lacrosse career was coaching D2 and D3. But like you were kind of new to it. And I remember when we both decided to do it, I was like, why don't we do it together? Yeah. And our editor, Kenny Dijon, shout out Kenny Dijon, was like, can you do that? And I was like, can you make it happen? And he was like, yeah. And a lot of it was, I don't know if I can do this by myself to the extent that it's good enough. And that's why we comboed together. And I think we were approached at the same time.
Yeah. I remember getting the call from Kenny where he was like, we're looking to kind of up the coverage of D2 and D3. We're looking to do it with some guys who like know the sport, know the landscape, know all that stuff really well. And for some reason, I mean, I must have been a wrong number or like the 10th guy he called, but
There's not that many of us, Dan. Like,
yeah, so
you don't have to be modest. There's probably
we had
5
that
guys
conversation because, well, at that point, I had been doing a lot of D1 coverage. You know, I had been in like the polls and all that for D1 and all that, and I had obviously started, making a name for myself. So, um, I at least had given him the impression that I knew what I was talking about. So he was like, "Do you want to do D2, D3? Do you want to try and do that for us, like a weekly ranking? We'll do player rewards. We'll do some other stuff in there." And I was like, "I'm very interested in doing this, but and I told him this. I was like, my reservation is this: the D2 world, even if I was to just to do like just one of D2 or D3 and you got somebody else to do the other one, those worlds are enormous. There's whatever, like 80 D1 teams. There's like 10,000 D2 teams and D3 teams. Like
Yeah.
there's a million of them. And to me, to like the standard that I try and hold is that if you're gonna be covering D2, then you need to cover it all. Like you need to at least be like have your thumb on kind of all of it. I know that like the top end of D2, you have that first tier of teams that you can usually pretty safely be like, this is the group that's going to be there at the end.
Right.
But you're not doing a good job as a journalist or somebody covering D2 if you say, well, then I'll just cover those guys. And these guys that are ranked 25 to 200, sorry, like you're not doing a good job if you do. So I was like, I have my regular job. D2 on top of that is a ton. D3 on top of that is a ton. I don't feel like by myself I could do it. I don't feel like I could watch enough. There's enough hours in the day for me to really do this. And Kenny, I think, understood what I was talking about. And I think he had mentioned, I don't remember if he specifically said you, but he was like, we've got, another person that we're talking to about this, whatever. And I was like, if it's something where we could do it, where it would me and somebody else, like two of us, and we can kind of divide and conquer the thing. Then I'm absolutely in, 100% in. And it ended up being me and you doing these like epic Zoom calls, figuring out all Americans, emailing coaches, calling people, trying to figure out like, for you folks listening, if you think the D1 grad years and COVID years are confusing,
Oh my God,
man, a D2 and D3 roster where it's like this team hasn't updated their roster yet from 2 years ago. And
yeah. Does this school have an SID? We don't know.
Yeah, my SID, like I'm emailing the SID and it's bouncing back. I don't know.
Literally had a coach tell us that they don't have an SID right now because he didn't come back. And I was like, it's November.
Yeah.
What do you mean you don't have an SID?
And again, imagine trying to do that by yourself. Forget it. But, I think like, I feel like we do a pretty good job. If I don't do say so myself, but we kind of hunted down the guys that we really liked in D2 and D3 for like player and positional stuff of the year kind of things, for all American lists. And again, like to the same point of like, you kind of know that top tier in D2 and really in D3 too.
Sure.
Like you could make an all American list in D3 and it's like 11 dudes from Salisbury. Like you could do that, but that's lazy. That's not really like, that's not really the right way to do it. Like all those guys are going to get, their recognition as the year goes on because they're good and they deserve it. But, is there a kid at Coast Guard who's actually awesome, but he plays for Coast Guard, so people don't really watch us on. I don't mean this is like sending a stray at a service academy, so shame on me. But
right.
If there's an awesome kid at Coast Guard, he deserves to be seen. He deserves to be recognized in some way with, either a player of the week shout out for guys who kill it, those kind of things. So, I feel like we do a good job of trying to get to the entire landscape like that, of saying like, yeah, look, Adelphi could be the team of the week every week. But you know what? Like this team, who I guarantee most of these readers didn't watch their game this week, but they eke one out in double overtime. And the kid who hit the game winner also hit the game tying goal, and they were down 4 late. And it was great. And this, that. Like, we go out and we make sure we find those games too. And you cover those games too, because that's
and
what you really want to try and do.
The amount of games that we actually watched was insane. Like, maybe it's not, and like, I'll cop to this for sure. Maybe I didn't watch the whole game, but I watched some stuff in real time because I'm following scores and I'm like, whoa, what is that? And we're popping it back on. And then I'm watching it and then I'll be like, hey, or I'll text you. And I'll be like, we're actually like, we communicate almost exclusively through Twitter DMs for some
Yeah,
reason.
through DM. I mean, yeah, I do that with a lot of people. It's weird how that's happened to me, but
That
yeah.
that's the only thing it's good for anymore. Sorry. Like,
That's okay.
I will send you a DM, just be like, I'm gonna check out this score. This one's really tight. Can you look at this one? If you have time, can you check this in? And we'll just like go back and forth with that to try and build a thing every week that, like, on Sunday nights, people don't realize this. On Sunday nights, we're sitting there in the Word doc in real time, updating each other's posts, and like, not necessarily talking to each other, maybe putting little notes, being like, hey, look at this. Hey, how about this kid? Hey, how about this kid? Hey, how about this kid? And it goes through so much revision that, like, we got at a certain point, and I think it happened this year, not the first year, because we did it for the first time last year, right? This year, we got to have fun with this, man. I'm going to die. If I do this every week and I can't do something fun, I'm going to die. I literally can't do it. And one of the things that we started trying to sneak stuff in past the editor, which is kind of my specialty, but I, as an editor, also hate. And one of the things that got through was RIT had a really great win. And we put like the Tigers are back or something. And then I was like, watch this. And I put roar at the end, but it was RAWR. And I was like, he's going to cut this immediately. And then it came out and it was in the post. And I just remember being so happy and texting you and sending you DMs. And I get an email from Kenny. He's like, which one of you did this? You know, and I actually talked to him about something else recently. And he's like, yeah, I mean, you know, I know you when you're trying to do it. And I know when it's you and I know when it's him.
Yeah.
Because we both started doing it.
I was sneaking in movie references wherever I could, or like song lyrics, or like that kind of stuff.
Dude, there was a John McClane that was killing it at one point. Let me tell you, Die Hard jokes we made.
There was a Die Hard because a kid named John McClane had like 5 goals one week or something like that.
That was real tough. If your name is funny, you're getting a shout out, or you're getting like Judge Murphy. Shout out Judge Murphy.
Judge Murphy got
there.
A
I'm
lot.
like, the judge, you know, adjudicates you or something.
I don't remember who John McClane was playing for, but I was trying to work in like he was blowing up like Nakatomi or something like that. Like,
you got that one. No, I think it was too obscure for people, but I feel like, you know.
Are you serious about playing your sport in college? Do you need a flexible education that allows you to maintain your practice and competition schedules while also preparing you to succeed at the next level? You should check out the University of Nebraska High School. UNHS is accredited and offers more than 100 online courses, including NCAA-approved courses to protect your academic eligibility. Students could earn a UNHS diploma or take a single course for transfer credit. Courses are college prep, self-paced, and available 24/7, 365. Enroll anytime and take up to a year to complete a course. Visit highschool.nebraska.edu today.
Hey, it's Bobby Moran, Director of Athletics at Thayer Academy. You know what? Experience matters, and Thayer Academy's professional coaching staff understands how to work with each student athlete to help them succeed. Our coaches and faculty are committed to ensuring both 5th to 12th graders feel known, connected, and prepared. This is Thayer's secret sauce, nurturing each student to reach their full potential. Here, success is truly a team sport. Are you ready for your child to take the next step? See what Thayer has to offer at thayer.org. That's THAYER.org.
You know, and I know this is a ton of inside, the phrase is inside baseball, but lacrosse means something else, but inside the industry right now stuff. And I want to talk about it just because there's very few people I can talk to about it, first of all. Second of all, like, one of the great things about this podcast is I get to pull a curtain back and just be like, listen, this is how it is, man. Like, I know you guys think, like, I am not a dude that has no life that sits around doing lacrosse stuff anymore. I was for a long time, but I have to have a life, and like sharing projects as part of that. You know, having Dan come on writing a Connecticut column for us is huge. Like, the Connecticut audience is huge. Like, I appreciate you. I don't like driving to your state because it's far. It's not because it's bad. It's just far, and I already have to get through Boston traffic as it is. But like, the connections of different people turn into specializations And one of the things that when I started working here that I wanted to focus on was I didn't want to just be the D3 guy, the pro guy, the analyst guy. And the hardest part for me transitioning working here was I had people my whole career telling me, this is who you are. This is what I want you to do. I don't want you to do anything. Not being the gear guy, for example. I don't want you to do this. I want you to do this. I'm gonna be like, well, why can't I do that? And they're like, well, you haven't done that before. And sometimes, listen, I would fail. Like, they had reason to say that. I covered a girls' game once. It was a women's game. Sorry. It was the worst thing I've ever written in my life. My editor, shout out Hallie Quillen, was like, what is this? She's like, they have 11 players on the field. I was like, oh, so you got to cut out that paragraph. That's weird. And it was like a semifinal. And I was like, I'm not good enough. I don't know enough, right? And the first year here, that's all I kept thinking. I'm like, head in my hands. I'm like, I don't know enough. I don't know enough. And the hard thing is knowing that you need help and reaching out to people that can help you. Even if you're in a position like people think this is like super easy or I love this. It doesn't mean just because you love something doesn't mean it's easy. Right. And you know that better than everyone. And I was like, how am I going to do Connecticut stuff? I was like, I got to call Dan. I got to do this. And then I was like, please help me. There's a lot of like, please help me calls. And, shout out to everybody that has helped me through this to get to the point where we're at now, where I do think we are the authority in the area. And I think, that is a thing that is a testament to people like you, not me like swallowing pride and being like, I don't have the bandwidth to do all of this. I need help. I need the ability to bring in people that care about this, because I've had some people that just want to do stuff and I've had people turn in assignments that are chat GPT'd.
Oh no.
And I'm like,
tell them they can work for ESPN.
I'm like, do you not know that I know what that looks like, man? Like, do you, so if I talk to you and just PSA, if I talk to you and I'm like, hey, I'm interested in you writing for us, but if you turn in anything AI'd, I'm going to know. And I'm going to be furious with you. Just so you know. Like, that's because it hurts us. It hurts our business. It hurts what we're trying to do. It hurts everybody trying to do this as a job. And, I think that's a super important message to just get out there to people that are like, oh, well, I want to get into lacrosse, but, it doesn't pay much. I'm like, well, we pay, but you can't just throw garbage in, an email and send it to me and think it's an article. Like, there has to be standards and practices, and everybody does that, right? Like, all four entities that are out there. And then people create their own thing. Like, I have Lacrossity is my newsletter, and you have Sticks In, which is a podcast and a website that is yours, and you can do kind of whatever you want with that. And that's kind of where people can follow like you as a person or off of social media and stuff. Like, I transitioned from social media onto that for me, but the job is very different, and the job is important, but the job needs people. It needs help. Everybody needs help. And I think this whole attitude of like, oh, you're doing it all yourself, no wonder you missed this, or hey, you missed this, or hey, you didn't do this. It's like, okay, like, I'm listening, but also I'm probably not responding to that. If I respond to it, it's okay, I have to remember that, but I'm also not going to be mad about it anymore. And I think that was the hardest thing for me doing this. And I know it's hard for you too, because like you get trolls on your stuff all the time. And it's tough. Like, it's tough you get emails from people that are mad about something that it's always someone that's mad about something you didn't do.
Yeah.
It's the most frustrating.
It's usually that. It's usually you didn't talk about this enough, and you didn't say anything about this, or why haven't you commented on this or that? And usually if it's like, it happens the most when it's like, all right, this thing happens. That's generally perceived by everybody as to be a bad thing that happened.
Yes.
I don't say it was a bad thing that happened. So it's meant to then it morphs into, well, then he thinks it's a good thing.
Yep.
It's the lack of commenting on it means I agree with it, or I think it's good, or I like it.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, it might just be that I got an afternoon full of meetings and I haven't seen it yet, and I haven't commented because I don't know what it is and I don't know anything about it, or I don't feel comfortable enough to comment. So it doesn't mean I agree with it. But, there's a lot of that where if there's a very popular or very much like the kind of the echo chamber has started and everyone is kind of in agreement about this thing being good or this thing being bad, and I don't join that echo chamber immediately, it's not that it gets morphed into this feeling that, well, then he disagrees with the echo chamber, which, I mean, maybe I do, maybe I don't, but regardless, it just kind of starts on its own.
That's why I got out. That's why I left. Honestly, that's why I left. Like, it's terrible. I don't want to deal with it.
So it can be rough, like I get, like I mentioned my profile on social, like my DMs are open. I know it's gotten a little bit harder to DM people, but if you're able to somehow, I don't know how I can make it easier. My DMs are always open to talk about stuff. And sometimes when people send me a message with a question about something, or this thing is happening, can you promote or boost it out in your social, whatever, this or that, and I don't respond, maybe I just didn't see it, or maybe it's just like in those like filtered DMs at the bottom, whatever, I haven't gotten to it yet, whatever it is. But then sometimes people would be like, I thought your DMs were open. Like, are you gonna, like, well, I was like, I'm trying. I'll get to you. I swear. It's not personal.
Yeah.
This isn't something where I saw it and I said, screw this guy. I just like, I'm trying to get to you. Yeah, I am. But I have a very full life, and it's tough sometimes to, like, I can't sit there for an hour and get through the DMs and the messages and this and that and the emails and be like, I gotta respond to every one of these. Start looking like Jim Carrey and Bruce Almighty, just like with fingers flying around like crazy. By the time you're done, there's 10 million more.
Yeah, and now the sun's down and you didn't eat all day, and you're like, what?
I'm sorry, but if I have to make the choice between spending a couple hours here with my kids after work or responding to your DM, like, I'm gonna probably play with my kids for a while.
Well, let's transition into something.
Yeah,
we both want to talk about that, which is not us whining about our jobs. Because we are very lucky, we know that. But
if anybody is still listening after all that complaining, we're going to talk about something different.
Yeah, let's talk PLL semifinals, because I don't get to talk about it that much. I have not watched a ton of PLL, as I do not cover it, and I've been sweating on fields all summer. I did cover the games at Harvard. I was offered the games at Gillette. I did not go. Obviously, the Cannons lost and only scored 4 goals. I saw that. I wrote out a tweet and deleted it because it was too mean, which is also something I do now. But we're going to the semifinals. We got I think these are obvious. Tell me I'm wrong when I say that the final should be an obvious 2 teams. Is that wrong?
It depends on who you say they are.
Atlas Archers. Should be.
Atlas is the easy pick.
Yes.
I don't think Archers and Chaos is obvious.
Is it because Schreiber's out?
It's partially because Schreiber is out, but this, like, historically, go look at the matchup between the Chaos and the Archers. And even when the Chaos are maybe not as good and the Archers are great, the Chaos always somehow just give the Archers a really hard time.
Yeah.
Like the Archers just can never just like get a hold of that game and dominate it, or even regardless of how good they are or how banged up one team or the other is, how different they are. The games are always good. Like, they're always kind of just battles. Even when they played whatever it was in, I think it was in Baltimore. When they played, was it Baltimore? It might have been somewhere else. But when they played this year, it felt like a playoff game then. And Chaos won that game.
Right.
Whenever they play, it's a playoff game. So I don't think that game is obvious. I think it's going to be hard for, I don't know who's beating New York. I mean, New York is going to be everybody's title pick. They are as loaded as it gets. They don't have a spot where they're not well above average. They are a really, really good team. But the Archers and the Chaos game, I think, is going to be a good one. It's the one I'm more excited for sure.
I think if I'm giving a chance to the Whips, it's because Stags is a maniac, and Stags has been thinking about this game for a long time, and he is gonna have a plan. When I saw the Whips play at Harvard, I was kind of like, this team is missing something. It's missing an identity on offense, and that was when Dordovic was hurt.
Yeah.
Right. he's back. I've seen some stuff since, and I think that might be enough to make it.
Dordovic isn't playing.
Oh, he's not? He's
out?
He
broke his jaw.
He broke his jaw. That's right.
Yeah, his season's over. He broke his jaw in, where was that?
Was it Baltimore?
That Baltimore? That was Baltimore.
I think that was Baltimore. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's out, but he, like, to your point, he changes things for them in a major way because there's nobody with a skill set like his. Like, he is as explosive laterally, change of direction as a Dodger in a way that nobody else in that team is. I think, TJ Malone obviously has been spectacular for the Whips. I think a matchup with Gavin Adler's tough, but like the Whips, I agree on Staggs. Staggs, after the quarterfinals, they started asking him about like getting ready for the Atlas. And he was saying, he did the usual, like, we have to focus on us and kind of stuff, but he did in talking about Jeff Teague being like, you can't have him get 4-4.
Yeah.
He can get 4-0, or he can get 0-4, but he cannot get 4-4. You have to make him score Jeff Teague or assist Jeff Teague, and you can't let him beat you in every way possible. So starting with that, I think is a good place to start. I think it's going to be a really good matchup for a rookie and Ajax Zapatello, who I'm sure is going to get it, which is kind of insane. But I think the thing about what I love about the Atlas is the way they play early offense after faceoff wins. It's fascinating because they were so bad at it last year. They were horrible on the 32.
That team was awful at a lot of stuff last year.
They were bad at a lot last year. Transition defense and playing in the 32 was where they were the worst. They're much better at both. But watching them this year, and every week it's the same thing, and nobody can stop it. Trevor Baptiste is going to win the ball. He's going to go forward. He's going to run towards Jeff Teague. He's going to pass it to him, and then he's going to pick down. And then you're screwed because Jeff Teague's going to come off that pick, and Baptiste, because he plays so much indoor now, is really, really good at this. He's going to set a great pick. Teague's going to come off it. He's going to be going to his left hand, going across the top, and a couple of things can happen. You can have to switch the matchup for Jeff Teague, which sucks. You can stay with the matchup, and Trevor's going to stick your guy on the field. He's going to sub better because off that pick, he's going to have a head start. You're going to get screwed in the sub game. Or Jeff Teague's just going to go, like, score a goal. Like, your defense is immediately in shambles off of a Trevor Baptiste face-off win.
But the only counter to that is that they have Nards. They have Nardell. Nardell is the only guy that can match that, right? Like, I feel like the thing you really have to stop is all that inside work. Like, the inside work watching the Atlas is so insane. They run like it. People think that Jeff Teague is doing it by himself, I think, and he's not. Okay, Xander Dixon is running off of picks like he's Reggie Miller. Okay, this dude is getting open, and it's because it's funny that what do they call him, the Slim Reaper? Like, right? It's because he has that frame that is tall and long. So. And his hands are crazy. So you can put it in an area over here and he can get it. I'm gesturing far away from my body for those just listening. That's that. And that connection has kind of been obviously the thing everyone talks about. But the way it happens is that everyone else has to make that space open, right? And that's movement off the ball. That's switching at X. That's middies not getting in the way, which I think, listen, it's Pressler, dude. Like, if anybody knows where everyone's supposed to be, it's freaking Mike Pressler. Okay, Mike Pressler knows me covering the game where I should be sitting. Okay, he knows where everyone's supposed to be, and I think that took a while, right? I think that was a big part of him building that culture and rebuilding that culture in the last couple of years. Is him imposing whatever authority he can put on a team, but also letting them be that team. And that's why he's been a good pro coach, because when he came in, he wasn't, because he had a lot of strife in the Atlas locker room, for those of you listening, since the beginning of PLL. It's been an absolute, it's literally the meme of the dog sitting in the fire, sipping coffee, saying it's fine. Okay. And somehow in the last couple of years, Press has transformed that. And he is obviously the coach of the year, right? They haven't announced the awards, but he's got to get that. So I think,
the nominees. I don't think it's that easy to pick them. I mean, I talked about it a little bit on my pod, but like the coach of the year nominees are Staggs, Pressler, and Sudo. And I don't think it's obviously any one of those guys. I know, like, historically, like in sports, in pro sports in general, coach of the year usually goes to the guy who takes a really bad record and turns it into a really good record.
Yes.
Regardless of how it happens, like, that's the guy who wins coach of the year.
Yes.
Which obviously would not be Staggs, but there's a very good case for Staggs to be coach of the year. Like, he is in the midst of overseeing this team that I've called them all year, this team between eras, right? Like, no more Mike Earhart, no more Tyler Warner. Like, your Kyle Bernlohr has become your backup. You know, Matt Rambo and is aging, and like Chaney is aging, Jake Bernhardt is aging. These guys are all like approaching the end, and it's all being handed over to TJ Malone and Adam Patras, Jack Corris, and like Ajax and all these other guys. That's not an easy thing to do, to manage that in a way that's like, and to do it basically without Tucker Dordevic for pretty much the whole year, without Brad Smith for the entire year. Like, to do that and to get the torch passed without becoming a bad team anywhere in the process is really hard. And on top of that, he acquired Ryan Conrad, Levi Anderson, and a 3rd round pick for late round draft picks and a bench player
for nothing. So, you can say I'll say it. He got those things for nothing.
Like GM Staggs.
Anderson's great, man. He was
Anderson. I am always the man who's entirely, like, perpetually way too high on Levi Anderson. I've kind of become that person, certainly online, where I just like, I love Levi Anderson, but Rambo said it in a post game. He goes, "The Redwoods gave us Levi Anderson, but thanks for that. And it was like, yeah.
I mean, you didn't mention Rambo. Rambo is definitely transitioning, right? Like,
yeah, I said Rambo is like, you know, he's getting older. He's like, if that game has 10 seconds left and the Whips have the ball off an inline timeout, Matt Rambo might not be the guy who picks it up, right? TJ Malone's
he's the guy setting the pick now.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, as good as Rambo is in those situations, because he won a game in OT this year, he's still got a knack for that, like that big goal at the end. Yeah. But he's not like it. That's probably a TJ Malone's going to key our offense spot. It's very different. It's very different. And for Staggs, he had that roster that was from 2019 when PLL launched until basically like last year. He could draft whoever he wanted because it didn't matter, because his team was all stacked in their primes, just coming back year after year. And it wasn't until I think basically this past year, maybe
Earhart's retirement really moved a lot of stuff around.
Yeah, Earhart changed. Obviously, he changes everything on the field and off the field. Like, you can't even sub the same if Earhart's on the other team. Like, he'll kill you if you screw it up. So, I think that, like, this year, this past draft and the draft before it was really the first time where Staggs had to go to a college draft and actually be like, all right, I got to get some of these right. Like, I got to get some. I got to make sure I get some guys who can help us. In past years, it was like, I can reach a little bit. I can take some depth. I can try and add some guys, you know. But like,
that's the thing. He loves that. He loves taking dudes like a little later that he thinks he can turn into guy. Like, the greatest example of this is when he was with the Outlaws and he took Drew Snyder. People forget Drew Snyder played D-mid for his entire first year and then finally like earned his way onto offense and became an almost dominant player for the Outlaws for a fair amount before PLL even started. And, you know, to even further back up your point, that 2019 Whipsnakes team might have been the greatest team ever. I think the guy that's the 2008 Rattlers guy. That's me.
The Whips bubble team had people had people wondering if the league needed to step in and be like, we have to disrupt this. We can't put these guys in the field again. They're never going to lose. They're just never going to lose, because they didn't lose in the bubble. And then they won every positional award except for midfielder and goalie of the year, which went to Tom Schreiber and Blaze Reardon.
Yes.
And every other positional award,
and they won. Was deserved. And you know, that's the thing too. Like, it's almost like you're talking about passing of eras. This game is a passing of eras. If the Atlas stomp them out, which we all acknowledge, that's a possibility, right?
Yeah, it could happen.
That's a real change. That's a real shift in everything, in the power of the entire league. And then you look at Carolina and Utah. Never count out the chaos to dirty up a game, to find a way to win, because they have a physicality about them that even the most mentally strong professional has difficulty dealing with for an entire game. Okay.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
It's
And the Chaos
wild.
also, I mean, somebody said it before the Cannons game. They were like, I don't know if the Chaos can win without Valette. You know, the Cannons are so good, whatever. I was like, my guy, as long as Blaze Reardon steps into that goal for the Chaos come game time this weekend, they have a chance to win the game.
Yes.
They do. As long as Blaze Reardon's out there. And I went to Chaos practice on Sunday night, and I talked to like Jamie Hanford, their TC, for a little while. And Hanford was like, be honest, you giving us a chance tomorrow? And I was like, I don't know why nobody seems to be. Like, yes, I'm giving you a chance tomorrow.
Because they all look at record and they don't watch games.
Because like I was like, look, yeah, Jack Rowlett being out, that sucks. That's hard. But look at what the Cannons want to do, right? They are a team that they want to go from D to O. They want to hunt twos and transition out of the sub game. They want to try and have Asher kind of feed or create a little bit for himself. But Asher, would create, and he'd get to these like sharp angle shots that Blaze Reardon will eat up. They have Pat Kavanaugh. They guarded Kavanaugh with a shorty, and like, yes, he's dodging by his shorty basically every time, but he's running down the alley and taking a shot with diminishing angle every step he takes. Yes. And again, the guy in that is
where he likes to be. It's not where he likes to be anyway.
It's not where he wants to be, but Blaze Reardon eats those shots up anyway. It doesn't matter who's taking them. Pat Kavanaugh on a shorty, it could be whoever. So all these things that the Chaos wanted, or the Cannons wanted to do well, I was telling Hanford, I was like, you're still built to deal with all that really well. Like, I would not be surprised to see you win it all tomorrow. So when they won the game, I was like, yeah, that tracks. It kind of tracks. Yeah. I did really like their game plan of, they were double pulling face-offs, but they put Troy Ray, and Troy Ray had the game. He was a monster in that game. Yeah. Troy Ray had more ground balls in that game than all 5 Cannons pulls put together, which is insane. Yeah. But they would line him up on the off-box side as the LSM, and then, anticipating on a face-off loss, he just gets to sprint straight down and go guard Marcus Holman. He's right there.
Yep.
And then you can put Posey in the midfield, and you can guard Campbell, and you can just kind of go from there, and you're good.
Drop down.
Yeah. And Hanford was like, we're going to go Bowen on Nolting. We like our chances there. And that worked out. So I think for the Chaos, again, Blaze Reardon's in net, and the defense is always awesome. Zach Geddes, New England guy, is having a spectacular year. He's up for short stick D midfielder of the year. He is showing the ability to go from D to O, like his speed this year. I watched him play a couple times, and I was like, I'm going to go back and watch some Zach Geddes high school football highlights just to get a little more of this.
You should have seen him play box, dude. I watched him play for the Chowderheads, which doesn't even exist for like 3 games. And he was like, he barely knew exactly what he was supposed to do, but he was in every single play, every single time he was on the floor. Like, I hear these things. I forget who just said, I think it was Joey Spallina said, like, you bring a lot from box to field, but you don't bring a lot from field to box. I don't think that's true if you play in a defensive position where you run a lot.
I was going to say, like, for Geddes, like, when you watch him play now, I haven't seen him play box. I did not catch too many Chowderheads games. I watch a lot, but I didn't catch those. I think, you can see him being successful indoors, but I feel like you see a lot of Ryan Terefenko in the way he played this year. See a lot of Frico in his game. So, and listen, if that's where you're at, or if that's who you're comparing you to, then you are really, really good. So, not surprised to hear he would be like, or he was, obviously a guy who was learning, but like had instincts and athleticism to be competitive in box. But look, like him and like Ian McKay and like that crew going D to O, it's great. So I think the goalie battle in Chaos Archers would be great. I think you might just have the 2 best goalies in the league, probably the 2 best goalies in the world right now on the field in that one, and Dobson and Reardon. So that'll be fun. I think the face-off will be an interesting spot. Nick Rowlett is obviously still banged up. Maybe they go James Riley a little more. Chaos have to go James Riley again, but it's whoever it is. I feel like you probably expect Sisselberger to get the better there. And the Archers have been historically, last year they were spectacular. They were better in the 32 last year than they were in the 52. And nobody seems to be able to handle Grant Amon in the midfield, which is wild.
But now they don't have Schreiber.
But with no Schreiber, it's one of those things where, like, when you lose the top guy at a position, and it affects, whenever you lose somebody, it affects every matchup that occurs on the depth chart below that guy. So, like, if you lose your 3rd midfielder, well, their 4th defender bumps up and everybody below that's impact. But number one and number two, those matchups stay. When it's number one, everybody switches, and you get to put your best defender on their second best guy and your second best defender on their third best guy, and like down the whole list, it really can have an impact. So, maybe Eamon sees the poll. I would imagine he does. I don't know who else he would poll. Matt Moore is healthy and active, so that's going to change things too. It kind of shapes up for maybe like the guy who decides the game is a guy like Trey LeClaire, where it's like going D2O or shooting as a righty, playing an attack a little bit, going back to midfield and beating shorties, because he can do so many things well. That's maybe where that game gets decided, is with guys like that. Those like, who's going to beat your shorties kind of matchups, who's going to draw slides. Maybe it's those guys.
I mean, I think they're just going to try to kill Amen, but that's
they might just try and kill Amen.
By the way, that is the read on him. Like that's the read on so many players and like that are great in the history of the game and pro lacrosse is like, oh, we just have to like really be physical and like put him on the ground, and that's how we're gonna win. And again, giving Amen a ton of credit. I love Grant Amen. He is the greatest short king to have played since Mark Millen. Okay, I'm saying it. You can say I'm wrong. He's the greatest short king attack/midi now that has played since Mark Millen. All right,
he's up for midfielder of the year. He might be the first guy to win attackman of the year and midfielder of the year.
Yes, this is entirely possible. I think again it comes down to, honestly, and I hate saying this about a pro game especially, but any game, any lacrosse game, how is this going to be officiated? Because if they call every hit and every pick, then the Archers are going to annihilate them. But we also know that the PLL doesn't do that. So how far does the scale fall? And you include the fact that it's playoffs, so they incline naturally to let a couple more things go. That's going to swing, I think, more than... I think the goalies kind of average out. I think Archers have a advantage at the face-off. I think special teams are somewhat even with these, but I hate saying semifinals is going to come down to reffing, but it's pro lacrosse, and
I hope it doesn't.
It's happened before.
The nightmare scenario is always when the game's over, you're talking about the refs.
Yes.
It's never what you want. Never what you want. But I mean, like, I think you'll see some of that in, like, maybe the Newman Fields matchup will tell you what you need to know. Because those will be two guys who just play leverage and just try and shove each other around, and they're going to get picks set on them, and they're going to be pushing and shoving like crazy all over the place on that side of the field. You know what I mean? Or like the Hossack Burn matchup. How are we going to officiate this one? Because these two guys, again, they're going to play box lacrosse. It's going to be all shoulders and chest, and just that's going to be all you see out there. Yeah. And if they let them go, they let some of those picks go. That'll be interesting. Something the Chaos did the first time they played, and I would bet they go back to it, is especially off of face-offs and then early in clocks, the Archers were very willing in the first time they played to switch the Burn matchup. Just like a pick on Hossack and Burn comes over it, and they would switch the matchup. And I mean, the Chaos in the first half of that game last time they played were switching Burn's matchup basically at will, which I don't think is a recipe for success.
No.
So will the Chaos go back to it? And if they do, will the Archers be a little less willing to try to switch a matchup or to try and make sure that Hossack stays on Burn? Because I don't think you want to mess around and end up with a shorty on Burn in a playoff game. I just don't think you want to see that happen in any game, but a playoff game in particular.
No matter who that shorty is.
It could be Danny Logan. I wouldn't want Josh Burn out there.
Right. I would agree. All right. Let's pick. Keep in mind, this is going up like the day before the games are played. I am picking Atlas Archers. I'm not changing. I'm sorry.
I'm going to take the Atlas and the Chaos.
All right. You've made your case. I just love great offense. And it's not that the Chaos offense is bad. It's just we all have different cups of tea. I love the ball movement with some picks. I don't love my entire offense to be picks and to be sweeps. And listen, and I coached high school. That's what I use in high school is picks and sweeps, because no one touches that. But getting good balance, getting good movement, if Utah's able to do that and they have time on the clock and they can make the most of the longer clock as opposed to the shorter clock, because I think Chaos despite what you said, Chaos can thrive in the short clock if they get the right matchup. They're just so matchup dependent, and that's something that Utah can exploit, hopefully in the middle of the game. But that's why I'm picking Archers. I can totally see your viewpoint, and again, betting against Andy Towers is stupid.
And Blaze Reardon, I can't do it.
Yeah, I'm still mad at Andy Towers for the workout he made me do once when I was like, hey, how do you get this giant chest and your giant arms? And then I did it, and I couldn't move for 2 days. So that's I would not recommend doing anything that Andy Towers tells you to do as a workout. I feel like it was a joke on me, and I'm a little upset. But I'll let it go. Dan, anything you want to plug before we get out of here?
Thank you for having me on, first of all. But I have, as you mentioned, I have the Sticks in Lacrosse podcast. I just passed 100 episodes of that, which I didn't realize until this week. But I was like, I couldn't believe I talked into a microphone that much. I kind of mentioned it, but when you start a podcast, you're just like, man, I got all these things that I have so many ideas, all the stuff I want to talk about. And then it's been like 4 episodes. And you're just like, what am I going to talk about? I used all my ideas. I'm out. And now you got to keep going. So, I have 100 episodes of Sticks In. By all means, go check that out. Our 100th episode is a great interview with Paul Rabel about this past year in the PLL and their move to geolocations and some rule changes they made and some forward-looking stuff. So by all means, check that out. And then sticksinlacrosse.com is the site where I write, and you can see kind of my takes on things, my opinions. I'll probably have a semifinal preview up there, tomorrow in time for the games this weekend. And as team seasons end, I break down how their season went and what their off-season plan should be. So the one for the Boston Cannons, for you and England folks, is up now. You can go check out who's set to be a free agent and what the plan is there. But that's my stuff. USA Lacrosse Magazine, you'll have game stories from the semifinals from me up there after this weekend, so you can check those out too. Thank you again to Kenny, our wonderful editor, who still texts me sometimes. It's like, are you going to be there? Do you want to do a gamer? Because I love getting that text. So Sticks In, man, is my thing to plug. The podcast, sticksinlacrosse.com.
And also New England Lacrosse Journal, laxjournal.com, where Dan covers all things Connecticut, here, there. We're doing recruits. We're doing team previews, high school and college. Can't wait to see what the fall holds, and excited to work with you again on the worst thing we do, which is All-Americans, and everyone hates us for it.
Yeah, that's the thing we get more hate on than that.
Yeah. And thank you again for listening to New England Lacrosse Journal's Chase the Goal podcast. I'm Kyle Devitte. See you next time.